Nigeria is the largest producer of yam in the world. Yet, Nigeria grapples with a staggering 70% rejection rate of food exports in the international community, despite the significant production capacity. Nigeria's bountiful landscapes have historically yielded abundant agricultural resources, with yam at the forefront. For 15 years, Alexander Ayima, a seasoned farmer from Benue State, has honed his skills in yam and cassava cultivation.
Averagely about 5,000 tubers annually, and we move 4,000 to Port Harcourt, while the other 1,000 is sold locally within our market sale. Mind you, we are talking of yams that are of grade. There are other ones that we don't count. Those ones we call them seed yams. And even from those ones you can sell and still make money. But when we are talking of the 5,000, we are talking of the grade A tubers. We use trailers and gongolo. These lorries are the ones that move them from here to Port Harcourt. Remember I told you we don't have the know-how of exporting these yams to other countries. So the highest point we go is Port Harcourt and sometimes Warri, while we load them in lorries, take there, sell them and come back.
Despite his dedication, challenges such as inadequate storage facilities have compelled him to scale down his production capacity.
The government create these storage facilities so that government will not buy from farmers and store. And in terms of need, government will not release this agri-produce to even farmers who cannot buy at reduced prices. If you have a well-ventilated apartment where you can preserve these yams and then be sorting them out from time to time, you don't have such facilities. So it becomes difficult for you to store your yams. All these yams we have, sometimes we keep them on the farm for fear that if you bring them to the home and there's any fire incident, you know, most of our places are thatched roof. So fire will just clean them in one day. So fear, you leave them in the bush, in the farm, so that from there we'll be picking them to the market. But even then, you lump them in one place. No air, no ventilation. So as you lump them, they get rotten. We know that the value that these yams will attract when it is exported is very high. But we don't have the means, and government does not seem to be on our side. That is the most unfortunate thing. As I told you, Ghanaians will come here, buy this yam, and export it to Western countries as their products, while the yams are from here.
Nigeria boasts an arable land area of 34 million hectares, yet much of it remains dormant and untapped potential. This calls to question, why does Nigeria encounter barriers when exporting agricultural produce?
Sometimes when you get what you want, or you see similar things, like not exactly what you want, but you see similar things. And when you see it, they are looking as good as dead. Like the veg are almost gone. Then sometimes when you see the yam and you buy the yam or the rest, when you getting home, it's almost like half of it is already bad. And I would say I'll blame it on exportation, like taking long to get here and the storing and everything. Like I'll blame it on it. But we don't have a choice. As whenever we see it, we run and just get it.
The issues stem from problems like poor quality packaging, insufficient labeling, inadequate documentation, unauthorized transitions, and even illicit importation.
The process of export has stages. And once you do not follow the protocol that has been laid down for the process of export, there are possibilities that rejects will happen. Now, rejects can come in different forms. Fundamentally, you could have rejects by virtue of the presence of pests, like I said earlier. And when we say pest in quarantine language, what it means is pests and diseases. It has to do with both the other insect pests, the diseases that could affect it, fungi, bacteria, viruses, nematodes. That's one part of what could cause rejections. Another thing that could lead to rejects, again, is when you have contaminated product. Major cause of reject, again, is lack of proper documentation. Well, once you do export into a country, the first thing that is checked is your documentation. You will present your papers as they were. Now, if you have improper documentation and your documentation does not tally with the product you have brought in, there is a possibility of reject.
The EU is a key destination for Nigerian exports. However, non-compliance with stringent maximum residue limits for veterinary products and pesticides in conjunction with food contamination thresholds results in rapid dismissals. Chioma Chudi from the Standards Organization of Nigeria speaks about the stringent criteria of the European Union.
When we talk about agricultural produce, we look at quality. And what is quality? Quality is fit for purpose. We export a lot of these agricultural food and food products here, but we have issues of rejections, and that is as a result of contaminants. We talk about pesticide residues, diclovers, and other impurities that are not supposed to be in a product, and that causes rejection in the export market. Usually, SON develops standards and codes of practice. And these codes of practices is, as we know, food is from farm to fork. So these codes of practices are to be used starting from the farm, where the farmers are supposed to know what and how, and the kind of seedlings they're supposed to use to plant and all that. So we work in line with other relevant government agencies and even organized private sectors to ensure that this comes to stay. Technical barriers is a very great thing that hinders these products into being accepted into the international market, because we have these technical barriers that stakeholders are supposed to adhere to, but they are unaware basically of it, or rather do not seek the relevant information that they need to get for this thing to go easily. You have, I could mention a few like packaging. If you talk about packaging, you find out that these people are supposed to package their goods they'll give you requirements that are environmental friendly, okay? But sometimes maybe our stakeholders do not really, in quotes, understand the kind of packaging and all that. You need to do packaging, labeling, sizing, the weight. There are some kind of type of labeling they may need you to do, depending on the country of import that is you're exporting your product to. Some may want you to actually define the nutritional value of the product in question. And all these things are in the standards that is being developed by SON. So it's just for them to adhere to that.
The challenges escalate due to inadequate screening and certification processes. This deficiency in quality control means Nigerian produce will be rejected across foreign markets.
Our offices are open. It's only when you are told what they want to do that you can appropriately guide them. Unfortunately, some of them feel, because we have a scheme in place called the Mandatory Conformity Assessment Program, which is BANCAP, is a certificate that is issued to manufacturers or producers when they process their goods in line with a standard, showing conformance to that standard. So when that is done, if they just take it abroad like that, not understanding the fact that there is no particular standard for export, because they all differ in different countries. We have to understand that quality is something that is peculiar to people. We have ours in Nigeria, and when we say we do not want things like salt being imported or being manufactured into the country without being iodized, we call it poor quality, we call it substandard. So also it applies to other importing countries. So they are to get this information from our state offices, and we can guide them. If you come to the office and you tell them, I am manufacturing this or I'm processing this and I need to take it to this country, AYZ country, they will give you the appropriate guidance. You take this requirement, you give it to the stakeholders. The stakeholders now goes to look for where it is necessary of what they need. For instance, you have relevant certifications that are supposed to be accompanied of some products. So if you do not get those certifications, for instance, you will not be allowed.
Nigeria's agricultural influence extends beyond yams, with a second-place rank in global sorghum production and a significant contribution to palm oil and cocoa bean cultivation.
Every pesticide that is used has a calibration and has dosage. But then because most of our farmers that are into cultivation and production are not that enlightened, they tend to arbitrarily use these chemicals, and which leads to overdose. If a farmer has his beans and he harvests his beans, because he does not want weevils in them, he applies the chemical. He sells it to the next guy, probably who is an aggregator. The aggregator too takes it into his own store. Because he wants to keep the beans clean again, he doses his own pesticides too. And then the exporter comes and buys from the aggregators and then wants to export. At the point of export, there are treatments you need to give. Now, unknown to the government agency what has happened up to that point, the treatment is not done, the fumigation is done. At the time you export, these fumigants or pesticides have not worn out their time. And so when you test, you find out that you have excess of the residue.
The economic impact is undeniable, as agricultural commodities yield an impressive 427.6 billion naira between January and September of 2022.
Our farming in Nigeria still remains largely at the subsistence level, where you have people that have just patches of land doing their things at different levels. And when they do it at those levels, then all those things come and are aggregated. Now, if you do that kind of farming, the possibility of control is very difficult. We'll take the Middle Belt, for instance, where you have a large arable land for cultivation, and again, largely the north too, which is very, very fertile when it comes to agriculture. You go there, what you find is that you have holdings that are having 1 hectare, 2 hectares, half an hectare, backyard farms, scattered all over the place. They are not in one place. So when you talk to farmer A, he does the right thing, farmer B is not doing the right thing. When we harvest, we are getting all these things together. So you have clean product being contaminated by unclean product. Now, which is the way to go? Normally, if you want to really do what we call export, we should have these things in large estates, where you could have a large expanse of land, 100 hectares, dedicated to cultivation. You have that kind of farm, you can control what happens there. Because if at that level you can have regulators resident on the farm to see that the right thing is done.
They should try to get the relevant certifications that they require and try to not to boycott these regulatory agencies, because we're all there to assist. I know that another thing that affects such may be through cargo handling, you understand, and there are some things you may want to transport because of the storage condition. It may be very okay, certified okay in Nigeria, but before it gets to where it's going to, A lot of things must have happened along the way. So storage condition comes to play. The cargo and the freight that is being used to transport these things should also be considered.
A pivotal development in the export landscape is the establishment of the Lily Pond Export Command of the Nigeria Customs Service in August of 2022. This facility serves as a hub for clearing agricultural exports to streamline the process.
No, even before the inception of this export processing terminals or Lily Pond Export Command, it was rampant. Getting to the port was difficult because your container can be on the queue for over 30 days. Imagine if you are having sesame or hibiscus for 30 days locked inside a container. You know, it will absorb humidity, moisture, and what have you, and that will give room for the growth of the mold or pest. That is before the sailing of the vessel. It will stay 30 days hanging around the premises of Apapa or Tunkan. So these are some of the reasons why we are having rejection and return of our consignment. And another thing why we are having rejection is not following the procedures. You are supposed to have your container fumigated. And who is the person that will do the fumigation? The relevant agencies, like the quarantine and the federal produce. And most of these guys, they don't follow the procedure. They just go and buy maybe pesticide, thinking that by them fumigating by themselves, they will be able to pass the quality assurance test over there. So that is the problem. But when we come on board, with the establishment of this command, we're able to bring all these people together. That's all the agencies. If you are exporting produce, you must pass the quality test. You must obtain the phytosanitary certificate, meaning that your produce must have been fumigated. This is number one. Number two, we ensure that there is no delay. We examine your consignment with all the agencies or all the unit of customs. From there, it goes to the port. And another thing is no intervention. Any consignment that is released from Lily Pond Export, there will not be any intervention by either any custom unit or by any other sister agency. That is some of the strategy we adopted in achieving that, so as to reduce the issue of rejection and return of our consignment.
Yet, a crucial requirement for export, the Clean Certificate of Inspection, CCI, remains elusive due to non-compliance by Nigerian exporters. This lapse in due process poses challenges at the international borders, further hindering export successes.
As you can see, this is an empty container which is about to be stuffed with raw cashew nuts. So by the time it is clean, it will be fumigated. After fumigation, it will be lined, then the stuffing will start. After conducting the stuffing, then the container will be sealed. Then we'll release it. After releasing, it will go directly to the vessel. So also, that is what is going to happen to the rest of the containers. Some of the containers you are seeing there, the procedure has been conducted. We have processed it. We are waiting for the schedule of the vessel so that the containers can go to the vessel for loading.
And this is an example of an examined container by customs and other relevant agencies. When a seal is put on a container, it shows that all examinations has been done. The next thing is for it to be transported to the mother port. The mother port it will be either Apapa or Tinkan or Grimaldi, that is PTML. You know, agro produce, they have seasons. So it depends on the season. Now is the season of cashew nuts. December, January is the season of cocoa.
Rejection that comes from infestation of pests is on the outer side, say about 30%. The other 70% of the cause of rejection is not the pest issue that NAQS deals with. It is concealment, documentation, forgery, concealment. So, well, it now becomes, it behoves on us as a country to be able to check this. Now, the way to check it again is like what I said earlier. We need to have our men at the exit and entry point. Because if they are there at the exit and entry point, they could first profile the documents to be sure that it complies. They will go and double check the inspection and see that they followed the fumigation treatment, as it were, and that the consignment is in good state before it goes out. But once they are not there, the customs or any other regulatory agency that is there will not be concerned, because that is not their own mandate. So they just say, okay, yeah, did you have your paper from quarantine? Yeah. They show it to them. They wouldn't know whether it's clean or not, if it's good one or not good one. Oh, okay, open the consignment. He opens it, he sees that, oh, the bags are looking beautiful. Then he says, okay, it's good to go. But the quarantine officer now, because he's the dedicated officer, he's the one that is trained to do, knows what to look out for. And then we can control this thing before it goes. So if we can put these measures in place here and there, it should definitely drop the rejects as much. If I could drop it by more than 80%.
As the sun sets over Nigeria's vibrant agricultural tapestry, the nation's potential is juxtaposed with the stumbling blocks impeding export endeavors. To reverse the trend of export rejections, necessary collaboration between regulatory bodies and the private sector must be secured.
I believe Nigeria has the potential to grow the export base, to promote the export, because export is the only alternative. Export is the only way out of this problem, the problem we are facing, especially the weaker local currency. Is when we are able to export, then our naira will be strong and stronger. It is when we are able to export, then we'll be able to repatriate this fund, then we will have a foreign reserve. Then the economy also will be big, will grow from strength to strength. Nigeria has the potential, we have the land. If it is the produce, we have the land to grow anything. Apart from the land, we also have the solid minerals that we can utilize to earn more money. And we also have the talent to manufacture goods.
Technological innovation should be encouraged and reforms enforced. Perhaps these will herald a new era where Nigeria's exports flourish on a global stage.